There's a silence that only comes after midnight, a stillness that lays thick over the world. As a college student working the night shift for a popular food delivery app, I found comfort in the predictable rhythm of it. The hum of my car engine, the soft glow of the dashboard, and the gentle chirp of my phone announcing a new order. One night, though, that silence was heavier than usual. It was around 2 a.m. when my phone pinged with a new delivery. The request was for a large order from a 24-hour diner located on the outskirts of town. The destination was to a place I didn't recognize, an old farmhouse supposedly nestled on the fringes of a wooded area, a few miles past the highway. The night was particularly dark, moonless, and the air held the chill of an approaching storm. I pulled into the diner's parking lot, which was empty except for a few scattered cars. The cook, a guy I knew only as Joe, raised an eyebrow when he handed me the order. "Out there, at this hour? Good luck, kid." I shrugged it off. It wasn't the first time I'd ventured to the outskirts. People get hungry, I reasoned, no matter how strange the location or the hour. The GPS led me down a series of twisted back roads, where the darkness seemed to swallow the beams of my headlights. When I finally reached the address, my heart sank. The farmhouse looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Windows boarded up, the paint peeled away by time, the garden overrun with wild growth. The place was a living shadow. I hesitated, but the nagging responsibility of my job pushed me forward. I grabbed the bag of food and approached the door. There was no bell, so I knocked. Silence. I knocked again, louder this time. A cold breeze nipped at my neck and I shivered, tugging my jacket tighter around me. Then the door creaked open. "Hello?" I called into the darkness. "Food delivery?" No answer. Every horror movie I'd ever seen screamed at me to leave, but I had this ridiculous policy of never abandoning an order. I stepped inside, calling out again. That's when I heard it. A soft whisper, but no words I could understand. It seemed to come from the depths of the house. A chill ran down my spine. My skin prickled with the immediate regret of my decision. This wasn't right. I shouldn't be there. The floorboards moaned under my weight as I ventured further, my eyes straining in the darkness. I was met with a sight that would forever be etched into my memory. People. There were people there, sitting around a long, decrepit table. But they were utterly still, not eating, not speaking, their eyes hollow. They were like mannequins, arranged in a macabre tableau of a family dinner. My breath caught in my throat. Panic gripped me. I dropped the food, the sound shockingly loud in the silence. Suddenly, one of the figures stirred, its head tilting unnaturally towards me, eyes piercing the darkness. "Join us," it hissed, a voice that didn't seem human. That's all I remember before I ran. I ran until the darkness of the farmhouse was a distant silhouette against the night sky, until my lungs burned and my legs ached. I made it back to my car, slammed the door, and didn't stop driving until I reached the glow of the city lights. I called the police. They found nothing but an old, empty farmhouse, just as I'd described. No signs of life, no signs of the macabre dinner party. They told me it was a prank, a setup, someone messing with the food delivery guy. But I know what I saw, and I'll never shake the feeling that whatever was in that house, it wasn't human. I quit the delivery job the next day, and I never take the silence of the night for granted anymore. Because sometimes, in the deep, dark quiet, you find things that don't want to be found. I used to work the night shift for a popular food delivery service. It was a way to earn some extra cash while attending college, and I figured the night hours would be less hectic. I was wrong. The memory of that night last October still gnaws at me. It was around 2 a.m. when I got the ping on my phone. The order was for a large pizza, chicken wings, and a 2-liter soda. The address was on the outskirts of town, past the industrial area where the streetlights were few and far between. I remember thinking it was odd for someone to order food so late when they lived so isolated, but an order was an order. I pulled up to the location, a rundown house shadowed by overgrown trees, their branches gnarled like the arthritic hands of the dead. The porch light flickered as if signaling a warning. I should have listened. I grabbed the food and approached the door, the air thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant hooting of an owl. I rang the bell, and the sound echoed into the house, hollow and unwelcoming. The door creaked open. No one was there. I called out, "Food delivery," but only silence greeted me. My gut churned, a primal instinct screaming that something was off. I should have left. I should have dropped the food and driven away, but I didn't. I stepped into the house, the floorboards moaning beneath my feet. "Hello?" I tried again. A voice barely above a whisper beckoned me from the darkness of the hallway. "Come in. Leave it on the table." The air was musty, thick with the scent of decay. I followed the voice to a dimly lit room where an old chandelier swayed gently. There, the table was set for two, as if someone was expecting company. The chairs were worn, the velvet cushions stained. The voice whispered again, "Just there on the table." I placed the food down, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on me. "That'll be $22.50, I said, trying to sound authoritative. But fear laced my words. No one answered. No movement, just the oppressive sensation of not being alone. My heart raced. I announced that I was leaving, that they could leave the money under the mat or pay online. I didn't care which. I needed to get out. I turned to leave, and that's when I heard it. A low, guttural growl coming from behind me. It was not human. It couldn't be. I spun around, but the room was empty. My eyes darted to the corners, seeking the source. Nothing. I bolted for the door, but as I reached the hallway, the floorboards gave out beneath me. I plunged through the rotting wood, my screams lost in the abyss below. The fall was short, but I landed hard on damp earth. The light from above showed the hole I had fallen through, and what surrounded me. Bones. Hundreds of them, some animal, some unmistakably human. The growl returned, louder, closer. I scrambled to my feet, panic fueling my climb back to the opening. I heaved myself out, not daring to look back. I raced to my car, the engine roaring to life as I floored the gas pedal, not stopping until I reached the glow of the nearest gas station. I called the cops, my hands shaking as I tried to explain. But when they got there, the house was gone. All that remained was an overgrown lot. They didn't believe me, thought it was a prank or that I was on something. I know what I saw, what I felt. I quit the delivery job the next day. Sometimes, when it's late at night and the world is asleep, I can still hear that growl, feel the sensation of falling. They never found the house, and no one ever claimed the order. But sometimes, I catch a glimpse of that address popping up on someone else's delivery app. And I wonder who or what is still ordering food from a house that doesn't exist. It was my first night on the job, delivering food for a popular app in the city. The night air had a crispness that hinted at the onset of fall, and the streets were oddly deserted, adding an eerie quiet to my shift. I had taken up this gig to earn some extra cash, thinking it would be an easy way to make a few bucks. The orders had been coming in steadily, and I was getting the hang of it. The GPS led me through the labyrinth of the city, guiding me from one destination to another. Then, around midnight, I received an order from an address at the outskirts of town. It was a long drive, but the app showed a hefty tip, so I accepted it without hesitation. The route took me away from the main city lights into an area that seemed neglected by time and people. The houses were old, many in disrepair, and the streetlights were sparse and dim. As I approached the address, I felt a chill that wasn't from the night air. It was an old Victorian house, its paint peeling and shutters hanging loosely. The front yard was overgrown with weeds, and the fence gate creaked ominously as I pushed it open. I hesitated, but the thought of the promised tip nudged me forward. I walked up the crumbling front steps and rang the bell. The sound echoed inside the house, and I heard the distant shuffling of feet. The door creaked open, revealing a dark interior. An elderly woman stood in the doorway, her hair a mess of white tangles, eyes wide and piercing. "You brought the food?" Her voice was a raspy whisper. "Yes, ma'am. "Here you go," I said, extending the bag toward her. She didn't take it. Instead, she beckoned me inside. "Bring it to the kitchen. I have your tip there." Every instinct screamed at me to decline, but the eerie environment had rooted me to the spot. Against my better judgment, I stepped into the house. The air was musty, and the wallpaper was peeling off the walls. As she led me through the narrow hallway, the wood floorboards moaned under our weight. We reached the kitchen, which was dimly lit by a single bulb. It flickered as she motioned towards the table. I placed the bag down and turned to her, expecting my tip, but she was no longer there. I spun around, searching for her, and that's when I noticed the kitchen door slowly swinging shut. Panic set in. I rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. The house started to feel suffocating, and I could hear my own breaths coming in sharp gasps. Then, the whispering started. It was soft at first, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to come from the walls. The whispering grew louder, a cacophony of voices that didn't sound human. I covered my ears, but it was inescapable. A photo on the fridge caught my eye, a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. It was a story about the house, detailing a tragedy that had occurred many years ago. The headline read, "Family found starved, mother missing." My eyes widened as the whispering ceased abruptly, and then she was there again, the old woman, but different. Her eyes were hollow, her face gaunt. "They never leave," she hissed. "Hungry, always hungry." In a burst of adrenaline, I threw my weight against the door. It gave way and I stumbled into the hallway, running for the front door. I burst out into the night, never looking back, the house groaning behind me. I reported the incident to the police and the app, but when they checked the address, the house was boarded up, seemingly untouched for decades. The app had no record of the order, and the police found nothing in the house but dust and the remnants of squatters long gone. I quit the job the next day, haunted by the night's events. Some nights I still hear the whispering, a reminder of the hunger that lurks in the shadows, waiting for the next delivery.